Let's do some seasonal rot. It's time to look back at some cartoons that may have started as monumental classics, but slowly degraded until they were just plain bad.
There was something different about them, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it.
Some people refer to this process as seasonal rot. Over time, these cartoons might have overstayed their welcome, lost the sharpness of their writing, the creators may stop caring, or the cartoon might even become mean-spirited and rotten. So let's check out the top 6 cartoons that got bad. And as always, if you still like these cartoons, that's great. It's just my silly personal opinion, and I'm glad you can still enjoy these cartoons. Anyway, let's do this countdown. Number 6, SpongeBob SquarePants. Let's start with the elephant in the room, or the sea sponge in the room, whatever it is. Most people tend to agree that SpongeBob rapidly declined from one of the most universally loved cartoons of all time to, well, Nickelodeon's subpar cash cow. After season 3 finished, a ton of the original writers suddenly jumped ship. At this point, the only writer who has stayed with SpongeBob from the beginning is their storyboard artist, and points to them for staying. As a result, after season 3, the series had a major drop in quality that was hard not to notice. Suddenly, SpongeBob, Patrick, and the Bikini Bottom gang lost all their relatability and rapidly transformed into one-dimensional caricatures. SpongeBob went from being intelligent yet always optimistic to just obliviously happy all the time. Squidward became a constant dour, one-note killjoy. Sandy was demoted to the cliché scientist whenever she got screen time.
Thanks, SpongeBob!
And Patrick became, well, a malicious jerk. But that's a story for another day. SpongeBob rapidly lost its universal magic and became something just for kids. That being said, SpongeBob is first on the list because I personally think as of season 9 and 10, it's improving again. The original creator, Steven Hilberg, returned, and it's good to see he's starting to bring life again back to the show. Because frankly, even after all these years of lousy episodes, I still don't hate SpongeBob. I love doing SpongeBob reviews, and I just like the character too much, and I'll still give most episodes a chance. SpongeBob deserves to rise back to the top in quality, and I hope in time it does.
We can just make one angry old man happy. That in itself is thanks enough.
And for number 5, The Simpsons. Back in the 90s, The Simpsons brought about a golden age to adult cartoons. We would not have South Park, Family Guy, Archer, or Bob's Burgers if Simpsons hadn't started it all. I can't imagine what adult cartoons would be like today if Matt Groening hadn't stepped in when he did.
That's it! You people have stood in my way long enough! I'm going to clown college!
I don't think any of us expected him to say that.
But nowadays, poor Simpsons is just pure necromancy. Fox will just not let this poor, amazing cartoon disappear with dignity. While I certainly don't think the cartoon is nearly as bad as some people claim, it certainly has got far more bland by its 28th year. And without some change, 28 years is far too long for any single set of cartoon characters. The official beginning of The Simpsons' decline seems to be considered around seasons 9 to 10, but many still do debate that. And when I compare episodes, I don't think we're blinded. I don't think it is just nostalgia. At this point, I'll still watch the start of an episode, hoping for that original comedic brilliance. But I'll generally give up on an episode after about 5 to 10 minutes. Much of that intelligent but neutral narrative is gone. Don't get me wrong, a social or political commentary is fine, but what was special about The Simpsons is it didn't force a side down our throats like other cartoons. It would originally show us both sides of the problem, and let us decide what to make of it. And even though 99% of the time I agree with their morals, it really feels like the messages are being shoved down our throats nowadays. They also began an onslaught of celebrity cameos forced in our face. And very rarely were they as smartly written into the story as an episode like Michael Jackson's cameo. There just hasn't been that same amazing attention to detail and snappy dialogue in the new episodes. But even today, I still have so much respect for the creators of The Simpsons. They are constantly trying to make it work, and you can see these writers are trying. and introduce their viewers to new concepts they might not have heard of, like the electric car. The fact that the spirit of the characters is still there, and The Simpsons hasn't declined further after 28 years, is a testament to the creators of this show. As much as I respect The Simpsons, it really needs to end. And the fourth cartoon that got bad is Powerpuff Girls. The interesting thing about the original Powerpuff Girls is that there's this strange, unwritten rule that no one ever talks about the final 2 seasons. While the first 4 seasons were fast-paced, smart, classic animation, the 5th and 6th seasons were actually pretty slow and unwatchable. Many of the later season episodes would consist of slow song and dance numbers
For safety on the streets.
and had a much stronger focus on minor, less interesting characters. And the new villains felt just plain boring and uninteresting compared to the old villains. I think this was partially because they increased the runtime of an episode from 10 minutes to 20 minutes. And let's face it, Powerpuff Girls is a 10-minute cartoon. And this unfortunately led to a lot more exposition talking, and a sudden sloth-like pace to the series. A series that was all about speed. For example, take this part in season 1.
Hi, Powerpuff Girls. Hi. Hi. Emergency. Bye. Hi. Get downtown. Bye.
Now take a look at this part in season 5. That was just awkward dead air, followed by a joke that just failed because there was no speed to it. I don't know if he was on a stricter schedule or what it was, but you can feel poor Craig McCracken's fatigue as the series drags on. That being said, I would still watch an episode of seasons 4 to 6 any day over an episode of that abysmal reboot. And for number 3, Looney Tunes. Let's jump even further back in history to the cartoon that created animated comedy as we know it, and the cartoon I consider the best American cartoon. Sadly, even history's greatest American cartoon hit some seasonal rot as the series went on. Though honestly, this seasonal rot was slow and downright understandable over half a century of episodes. Since there is so many of these cartoons, I'll focus on the Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck cartoon dropping quality. While it varies a bit on who you ask, from the 40s to the 60s is often considered to be the golden age of Looney Tunes cartoons. This is when we got characters like Tweety, Sylvester, Yosemite Sam, Marvin, and even Roadrunner, and the jokes were at their absolute sharpest. After this, a lot of things changed, not in just Looney Tunes, but society. Looney Tunes had to remove a lot of their scenes of violence for public broadcast because of impressionable young viewers, and many of the new episodes started to lose their teeth. Unfortunately, without the explosive slapstick payoffs that made Looney Tunes what it was, suddenly the jokes just didn't have that same original impact.
No more teachers' dirty looks. Yahoo!
You may have noticed that Bugs started to lose a lot of his pizzazz, his edge. It just felt like Mel Blanc's delivery wasn't as committed, which is, again, understandable given he'd been voicing Bugs Bunny for over 40 years at that point, though it sadly meant that Looney Tunes started to lose a lot of that original comedic impact. And by the time we got to Warner Brothers movies like Space Jam, which is a guilty pleasure for me, all that original impact was just gone. The Looney Tunes had lost all its comedic magic. That being said, I'm not saying all the Looney Tunes cartoons became outright bad. They were still imaginative, retained that Bugs Bunny spirit, and had their own style. But suddenly I just wasn't laughing at the jokes anymore. To the point that Looney Tunes Back in Action was the first movie I ever walked out on. And that being said, I think the spirit of Looney Tunes still remains in all of these new cartoons. I still just enjoy seeing Bugs Bunny on screen. He's just such a charming, likable personality that I don't even care that he doesn't make me laugh anymore. Even when it doesn't have any laughs, just seeing Bugs up to something new always brings a smile to my face. And the second cartoon that got bad is Fairly OddParents. This cartoon. It was just neat to see the imaginative situations Timmy would get himself into by wishing his problems away, only to have it backfire on him later. The show had imaginative stories, and Butch Hartman's iconic sharp writing. Like Danny Phantom, Butch would write that extra detail into his cartoons for adults, yet still appeal to kids at the same time. But most tend to agree that the tipping point for this series was in season 6, when the show made a gazoo. In other words, it started adding unnecessary, annoying characters. Most people tend to agree this happened when Cosmo and Wanda added a child to their family, known as Poof. Once again, we begin to see the characters no longer multi-layered and instead becoming annoying caricatures. Some people call this process Flanderization. I think that name's stupid, so I don't use it. While Cosmo and Wanda lost a lot of their insightful dialogue and became increasingly thick and obnoxious and high-pitched and squealy. Let's compare Cosmo's voice from season 1 to season 9.
That wish is just vague enough to work.
Remember? You had us poof it there during what I like to call Timmy Turner's week of really stupid...
It is just annoying. Characters went from insightful time travel wordplay jokes to
I will catch you, but...
Cosmo trying to bite his butt. Sadly, the creators of Fairly OddParents just don't seem to care anymore. And that's a shame, because it started out a really creative, fun cartoon. And before we get to number 1, I'd like to give the usual quick honorable mentions. Pokemon. How you doing there, Ash? Still 10 years old? Technically you should be about 30 by now, given there are over 20 years worth of seasons now. But I guess a 30-year-old running around catching Pokemon doesn't appeal to the youths as much. I wanted to break my no anime rule just to talk about this one. But frankly, it's just too massive to do a 2-minute segment on. With over 900 episodes of this show now, it's impossible to even give a synopsis in 2 minutes. But if people are interested later, I might do a separate review of this series. South Park. This one may be a bit controversial, but personally, I miss when South Park could be lighthearted. It wasn't a freaking essay to keep up with. I miss when it could be simple, it wasn't overly obsessed with politics, there wasn't a million things to keep up with. I think the series is still admirably strong, and I have so much respect for Trey and Matt for still trying to stay relevant after all these years. But personally, I'm just tired of it being so heavy all the time. But that's just my opinion. A lot of people still think South Park is just as amazing as ever. And with those said, here we go. And the number 1 cartoon that got bad is Family Guy. Ugh. This list wouldn't be complete without this monstrosity. I was hesitant and tried to be respectful with these other cartoons. But I will gladly rip Family Guy another well-deserved rear end. I know a lot of people still enjoy this cartoon, but I just personally can't stand what happened to it. While Family Guy was once an insightful, intelligent, solid cartoon with some spectacular cutaway jokes, with a style of song and dance number that just hadn't been done before in cartoon comedy. But at this point, it is nothing but a hate-filled shell of its former self. A rancid stink bomb shell that should be detonated at a nuclear waste site. The average new episode will make the viewer feel disgusted, annoyed, personally insulted, and bored at the same time. Some people say around season 6 to 7 was when this show started to flush down the toilet, while some say season 12. But whenever the case, there was such a decrease in quality as the series went on. Not even a forgivable decrease in quality. Just a hate-filled, spite-filled load of bile. To the point we're at today, where even Seth MacFarlane admits he wants the show to end. Family Guy began to rely far more on long, awkward cutaways such as the infamous Conway Twitty sequences. On top of this, there was a much crueler spirit to the characters, and an extremely preachy focus on Seth's own political views through Brian. While the new episodes still have the occasional sharp joke or thoughtful moment, the hatred and bile you have to wade through to find these jokes just doesn't ever feel worth it to me anymore. And some of these jokes I find outright unforgivable. From handicap jokes to domestic violence jokes to wrist-slitting jokes. Nothing is too distasteful for Seth's writing team. And yet, as of 2017, Family Guy has double the viewers of South Park per episode. So clearly, I'm in a minority thinking Family Guy has become utter garbage. In my opinion, very few cartoons deserve to be cancelled more than Family Guy. I consider it easily the number 1 cartoon that got bad. Sometimes, keeping a show fresh can be an uphill battle. as some settings and jokes can only be new and interesting for so many seasons. But cartoons like The Simpsons and Looney Tunes have put in incredibly valiant efforts to keep their shows fresh and entertaining for new and older audiences. And I think no matter how long these cartoons go on for, they'll always be remembered for their best moments in the spotlight. Well, thanks for checking out my list. Have you got a cartoon that you think got bad? Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments. If you'd like to be updated when I release one of these videos, feel free to hit the bell icon next to subscription. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.